Hey guys, the new patch for Dark and Darker is here, and you might notice something a little bit different. They added a new race to the game, Lizardman. There's 3 colors that you can get, blue, green, and red. I went for red. And it's quite different. So you cannot use headgear at all. So you can't, even if your class spawns with a base helmet, it will be unequipped. You cannot equip headgear. But you do get a pretty powerful 20 armor, just baseline, added to your... So, like, you have quite high physical damage resistance, even in quite low gear. So, I feel like it's going to be a good option for budget kits, but late game, running full kits, this is not going to be viable, I don't think, at all. On that note as well, they did also buff the base wizard hat. They gave it 1 magical power by the base, and also the wizard shoes come with 1 magical power instead of the magic resistance. So, base wizard got a little bit stronger from its gear, but it did get nerfed in some ways, such as your invisibility now provides the after image. So previously it just gave an after image every time you used it at the very beginning. Now it gives one every 1.5 seconds, so people can kind of track you and where you're going. So I do think it's going to be a pretty significant nerf. We're going to be running a pretty baseline kit here. We have a grey spellbook, 12 gold, that's it. Aside from that, Arcane Mastery, Sage, Quick Chant, and Mana Surge, the standard 4 for Wizard. We're going to be running Meditate, pretty standard spells, Zap instead of Ice Bolt. So yeah, let's get into it, see how the new changes feel. So I didn't actually show it either, but the new race does have a very different hitbox for its head as well. It has a completely different shaped head, rather than, you know, the standard elf, orc, skeleton, or base human. It looks... I should have shown it, but it like... Oh, yeah, so 2 magical power hat right there. Of course, we can't use it. But it should be interesting. It's definitely an interesting change. I'm surprised that they're doing things like that so early in, to be honest. But if you didn't see, this patch was quite huge. They changed quite a lot of different things. I do think Wizard is going to be a fair bit weaker now. Just from the invisibility. At least solo Wizard. In teams, it might not matter too much. But if you're running something... Of course, something like Buff Ball is going to be pretty significantly nerfed from this. You're going to be able to see when they're coming. They're not going to have that pretty massive advantage which they've had so far for the history of Dark and Darker. I think it is a good change, but it does hurt solo Wizard quite a bit, unfortunately. Solo Wizard's one of my favorite things to play in Dark and Darker. It's still probably fine though. It's of course just going to be weaker than it is. So one thing to know as well is they buffed the normal resting spell speed, or the like rate at which you get spells back from just resting. It's like significantly faster now. Of course, meditation is still, I believe it's basically double the speed now, which before it was, I don't even know, it was like 4 times faster or something. So you could potentially run like 10 spells base, or more realistically, you'd probably want to run the instant cast. They did also buff loot again a little bit. They buffed it from the higher tier chests. I believe that, you know, things such as maybe ornate chests and the... Well, I've seen those footsteps, but I think it's just mobs. Ornate chests, lionheads chests, golden chests, things like that. And also from sub-bosses, which I believe sub-bosses are like skeleton champions. I'm definitely hearing another player, I'm pretty sure. They made them drop, those things specifically drop more blues and greens now. So one thing I'm curious about. Right, okay, interesting. So, hopefully, I wasn't really happy with the... Oh, those are pretty good actually, let's take those. Someone died to a throwing knife, you don't see that very often. I wasn't really a fan of the loot changes before, where they reduced it again. I think that they should have probably kept it more like it was. But I suppose this is a move back in that direction. but it's a small one. Although the loot was a bit over the top. It just, to go from that over the top loot to how it was previously, it felt very bad. Unless you were playing a lot. But it is a point where they need to decide what they want Dark and Darker to be, really. Because it's kind of this weird split between a battle royale and like a dungeon crawler at the moment, right? For the high-geared players who just want a PvP and they just want to stomp everyone, it's a battle royale, basically. They just go in, kill whoever players, follow the zone, and extract. Well, you know. I suppose you don't extract in a battle royale, but in extraction shooters or things like that. Things of that nature. Well, for the more casual player base, they want to, you know, kill mobs, loot stuff, kill the boss with some friends in the 3-man map, kill some sub-bosses. Oh, that's really annoying, actually. And it's just a pretty big split between them both. And I feel like the devs aren't entirely sure how they want the game to be. And honestly, I'm not sure how much of an idea the player base really have on... I know, personally, I would probably like it to be more dungeon crawler than it currently is at the moment. What does that mean? It probably means... I think every level, every, like, map that you can queue into, so, you know, Goblin Caves, Ruins, and Crypts, should have multiple layers. So, like, that would be in Red Portal in every maps. I know they did originally intend for Ruins to be the first level, and then you move down into Crypts normal, and then you go into Inferno, or Hell. Which sounds interesting, and it sounds like it would definitely be a different style of game, but I think they're moving away from that play, or that idea, with the Runes being, of course, duos only at the moment, and them having different player counts. Crypts having... well, they just increased Crypts back to 18 players again. For a while, it was just sitting down at... 16. Oh, sorry, 15. 5 teams. Which was always weird to me, how it had less players than Ruins as the duo map to the trio map, but hey. I didn't mean to rust, I actually meant to meditate there. But for example, I think the Lizardman race, that being so different to other races, makes me feel like they want it to be more dungeon crawly and RPG-like, rather than the, you know, battle royale side, PvP focused, heavy, running around through rooms, rushing spawns, that kind of fast-paced, PvP-oriented gameplay. As I feel like it's something that isn't really probably that balanced. As I say, it will be considerably worse than having... Oh, there's someone here. It's a bard. I'm surprised this guy's still alive. There we go. Which, yeah, I think I personally would enjoy it to be more dungeon crawler oriented. Less PvP focused. But I'm not sure if I'm in the minority there or if a lot of people would agree with me. I really have no idea. I feel like there is a pretty big split in the player base, as I've said, on Dark and Darker. I feel like they attract a pretty wide range of players just because of how split the design of the game is. So notice I'm still using the staff mostly, even though I have the spellbook. It's fine for PvP, sorry, PvE, the staff, because it just does more damage, and, you know, you're not usually at much risk in PvP, so that's fine. PvE. But even against the player there, I was sticking with the... Oh, that's another wizard. Alright, let's rest up. Ah, I think he just opened the portal. I guess he's just gonna leave. Yeah. So they did again reduce the amount of escape portals back down to, I believe it's 4. So there's only 1 left to spawn now, which is actually kind of crazy. This late in the zone, there's only 1 left to spawn. But there is also the 1 static extract as well. So this means 5 maximum extracts. So at least 2 players are going to die in every single Goblin Caves run. Let's quickly check if the... Yeah, this is open, so let's just take the static extract. So I went in and died, and we're back in base kit now, because I wanted to try something a little bit different. We're going to be running intense focus again instead of meditation, and we're also dropped haste and are running lightning strike, because haste, I didn't notice in the first game, is actually significantly nerfed now. It no longer gives movement speed, which was usually, you know, the most important part for why you run it solo wizard. Of course, in Buff Ball, that's not the case, but Buff Ball... this is a Buff Ball nerf, and personally what I wish they would do is add a perk where haste again gives you movement speed, and maybe remove the after images things from invisibility, but you can't buff other people with them. It might be overpowered, I'm not sure, but it's at least something they could try. That would nerf specifically Buff Ball and not impact Solo Wizard much. You still, of course, would get nerfed because you would be losing a spell slot for no reason. But, hey, let's get into it. One more change they did is you can no longer see people's names in the in-game lobby. Everyone just comes up as Adventurer, and VoIP is disabled. Alright, let's get into it. So, of course, we're going to be needing to use a melee quite a lot more than we normally would on a wizard. But hey, that's just how it is to test this new build. Honestly, Arcane Shield might be the better choice than the Instant Cast. But I feel like not having haste, having that extra, like, almost panic button, is probably a pretty good... Well, you know, it will help us be able to deal with situations we normally would not like to be in a bit more. Because I feel like with haste not giving movement speed anymore, you're going to be in those bad scenarios significantly more than you used to be able to. You cannot kite anywhere near as strongly as you could have before. And my question is was Solo Wizard that much of a problem? Maybe it was, I don't know. But Wizard feels like one of the weaker classes, in my opinion, in Goblin Caves. It's not weak. Any class is fine, right? In Goblin Caves. You'll have good matchups, you'll have bad matchups. But I feel like Warlock just does basically what Wizard does, but better. But granted, Warlock also did get quite a few changes in this patch as well. I'm not going to be going into them in depth, but if you want to see them, check the patch notes. Unfortunately got hit by that bloody trap, but hey. I did actually look at the patch notes again as well, and they did buff the amount of treasure you get just from all dungeons, from like chests and things. So that's a nice change. That was one of my big complaints about how the game was previously. It just felt like you weren't getting enough loot particularly. It was fine if, you know, you looted... If you basically did nothing but loot the entire game, or if you, you know, killed another player who had quite a bit of loot on them as well, that's also, of course, fine. But I did feel like it did need upping a little bit, and hey, that's what they did. So hopefully that's a good change. 2 people traded already. Rogue and, you know, something that can use a falchion. Quite a few classes can use the falchion. So let's see if we can get some PvP. That also reminds me as well. Oh, interesting. Someone's been here. They nerfed the shrines significantly now. So this shrine here, the resistance shrine, don't know what it's actually called to be honest, might be resistance shrine, is now basically like a quarter as good as it was. A third to a quarter, somewhere between there. It now gives 5% physical resist and 5% magic resistance. Before it was 15% physical and 20% magical, I believe. So that's, of course, going to be a pretty significant nerf. Again, it's just them trying to nerf the shrines for the buff ball. Well, you know, the meta, of course, in geared crypts was to just instantly rush to all of the bloody shrines, get all the buffs, stack all your buffs onto a carry and run at people. So, thankfully, they're going to be nerfing that. That definitely did get massively stale. I am glad that they nerfed that part about Wizard, but that was never the part of Wizard that I enjoyed. So, it does kind of suck to be getting, catching basically strays. With Solar Wizard getting... What the hell is that noise? Actually, don't know what that was. So, let's use some of our... Oh, that's annoying. Use some of our assorted spells, and then sit down and take... Oh, wow, I'm surprised it's not dead. Right. Let's take a look how slow our spell regens actually are. Oh my god. With the meditation. You know, they're not going to come flying back, even though they did, like, increase resting by, like, 4 times or so. It's still, you know, they're not going to be instant. It's still going to be slower than meditate, and meditate sometimes does feel, you know, a little bit slow. I feel like I'm struggling a bit to clear how much PvE there is. Not taking damage, but I wanted to be making more progress. I wanted to be hunting players a bit more. But instead I'm hitting skeletons with like 5 bonks each. I guess we're pretty looting up, you know, a fair bit. So, of course, these wizard shoes as well give 1 magic power now instead of the base magic resistance that they used to give. I believe this does scale with the, like, tier of gear that they are. So, you know, white ones might give 2 magical power, greens 3. I don't know when there's a cap. I don't know if there is a cap or what. Oh, interesting! A Cortisca's hood gives magical healing baseline now? That's really interesting. So yeah, they've made gear, you know, a fair bit more interesting in this patch as well, which I always appreciate. But the thing that I think they need to decide... let's actually rest. Let's at least get 1 magic missiles back. Let's see how long this takes. But anyway, the one thing that I think they need to decide with Dark and Darker is they need to decide what kind of game they want it to be. What kind of game they want it to be. I think there's another player on the other side of this door as well. But right now, it's split between a BR for the high-tier players who are quite good and play quite a lot, and a bit of like a dungeon crawler kind of game for the lower-tier players who are not necessarily lower skilled, but at least play less. Have less experience. It's a, you know, more of a dungeon crawler PvE experience. Alright, someone's getting jumped in here, so let's go see what's happening in here. Okay, that's kind of annoying. It's a rogue, unfortunately. I believe. Damn. I really hate playing against rogues. I didn't think his cooldown would be up so high, so fast again to stealth, or did he not stealth to kill the other guy? Is it really that low of a cooldown? I guess so. Unfortunate. But it was pretty geared. I really just hate playing against rogues in Goblin Caves. At least as Wizard. As most other classes, honestly, they're pretty fine, but Wizard, it just sucks to play against. I've missed a few spells, but hey. That's going to be it for now, guys. Thank you for watching. I hope I was able to... the gameplay wasn't the best in this episode, I'm going to be completely honest, but hopefully the commentary was able to provide something interesting. If you'd like to see more like this, please let me know in the comments. I'd appreciate subscriptions. Likes also help me out a lot. Thank you a lot, guys. I'll see you in the next one.